Joining me now is the author of China's Urban Revolution, Austin Williams, who thinks the media, some parts of the media may be overplaying this. So I've seen your article talking about mass hysteria in parts of the media, morbid daily sport, you said. It's all being treated as the new yellow peril. So you think this whole thing is being overblown?
Well, I mean, obviously, there is a virus which is killing many people in China and in parts of the world, admittedly. But I do think that, when you take a look at the Daily Mail headline today, I mean, first of all, there's one extra person discovered today with the virus, so 9 total. Yet the Daily Mail has a headline which says 45 million people potentially dying of this virus around the world. And I think there's no correlation between the two things, other than the fact that there's a paranoia and a prejudice and an overreaction. I think if you look at Japan has got one case, an 84-year-old. Again, we're losing sight of the fact that, notwithstanding, every death is a tragedy, but an 84-year-old person in Japan has died of this virus, the first person in the adjacent country to China. So I do think that we have to get a little bit of a grip here on what the potential danger are to ordinary people within this country.
Yeah, but we have, I suppose, the latest figures, I think, talk about 60,000 people in China having the virus, more than 1,000 dead. So it is a cause for alarm, not least because the experts we talk to say they don't know how this virus is which direction it's going to go in.
Yeah, but that's why experts are useless talking about these things half the time. I mean, because they have to play cautious, haven't they? They don't want to be seen to be saying it's not an issue when suddenly it might flare up. And there's a potential for that because obviously China hasn't played this very well. Let's be frank. In some respects, it has. It's kind of closed down places. It's isolated certain cities. But at the same time, it's kind of having these internal ructions within China. I have it on good authority that the entire local government of Hubei province, Wuhan is the capital, Hubei province, have been removed today because of this internal fighting between blaming the national government and blaming the local government. So there's all kinds of incompetence going on within China around this, which has obviously led to not only the deaths that we know about, but I'm sure there's many, many deaths that we don't know about. But I do think that, just in general terms, the fact that this is, we're living in probably the most interconnected era in history. There's more people traveling around the world than ever before. This occurred at Chinese New Year, after all, where millions of people travel, and yet the death rate is actually kind of significantly low when you take that into account, I would suggest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues, I think, is you mentioned this word hysteria. I mean, China's reaction in shutting down entire cities, closing businesses and factories, pictures of people being manhandled into vehicles and, taken into quarantine, and building more hospitals with thousands more beds. That doesn't create an environment of calmness, does it?
No, but let's not. I'm saying I understand that with China. You see what you get in China. It's an authoritarian one-party state. What do you think is going to happen? What I'm slightly worried about is much more of the reaction of the media, maybe in the West. But I do agree with you that there was a Chinese commentator who's written that China has developed under Xi Jinping into a society of hacks and yes men. It makes Boris Johnson's reshuffle look like a tea party. But the idea that there's this world which can carry out authoritarian measures, they can instruct militarily the build of a hospital in short order. They can organize, they can mobilize, and all these kind of military terms, but they don't have the kind of civil society. They don't have the means and the wherewithal and the autonomy in some respects to actually deal with very simple things on the ground. So it's a much more military operation going on in China. The politics, you probably notice, everyone's being very quiet about it. Nobody seems to know what to do. So it's a real problem what's happening in China. In some ways, part of the problem in the West, I would suggest, is that people do like to give China a kicking, right? So I don't want to be too crude about it, but many Western media commentators have actually reveled in the fact that China is, going through a bit of turmoil at the moment because it puts them back in their box. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to defend the media unduly here, but the other problem is that China has it is a secretive communist regime that has proved itself untrustworthy in the past. One only has to think of the SARS outbreak when there was a massive cover-up, not only to the rest of the world, but to their own people. So part of it is a distrust of the government, the regime in China dealing with this.
Yeah, well, like I say, we in the West revel in the in the mystery of the Orient, don't we? I mean, the fact that we've just had the Huawei shocking scandal where you can't trust a Chinese person to kind of sell you a mobile phone, to the idea that, you know, China, by the way, it isn't a communist society, a Chinese communist government. It's kind of a bit of a confused mixed message on socialism and capitalism. But yes, it's a completely secretive state. And Xi Jinping's response to problems that are happening with it's hardly the liberalizing maneuvers that you might have seen 15 years ago when the SARS outbreak was occurring. It's actually clamping down. So there are real, you know, problems within China that I'm, you know, far be it from me to excuse them at all, right? I mean, they are significant problems. But at the same time, you know, we shouldn't look too far away from the way that we're handling kind of this conversation in the West, which I think is irresponsible. The fact that a lot of it's been flagged up in the West, 45 million deaths I mentioned, and then you find that there are lots of Chinese students who are saying they feel intimidated by, you know, people, you know, racism seems to be on the rise amongst Chinese people, which I don't necessarily hold with, but you can understand why they might feel a little cautious.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry to interrupt. We come to the end of the programme for this hour, but thank you very much for joining us.